the Graveyard Girls.
Yeah, so for my case today,
Mm-hmm.
we're going back for a little bit of history. I gained this one from a book that you actually got me for my birthday. And it's about, well, they call it Bad Women in History. So
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, it covers a lot of different cases. And in this, it wasn't an actual mystery. It was just the mention of a woman. But she kind of has a bit of a mysterious end.
Okay.
Because you don't know what happens to her in the end. And there's kind of a possibility of 2 separate death records. So it opens up a mystery of, did she die the first time or did she die the second time?
Oh.
Or are neither of these correct? So it's like she lives a very high profile and exciting sort of life.
Wait, is she Jesus?
No.
Did she die the first time or the second time? I don't know.
Well, it's like she lives quite a crime-fueled sort of life, very prominent. She's up to no good, and then she just drops off the face of the earth. So I'm kind of a bit like, oh, what happened? So I kind of maybe can explain what happens, as things go on, and I explain a bit about her life. But also there is an air of mystery at the end, and so I quite liked that as a thing. So basically, I'm going with pirates today.
Pirates?
We all love a good old pirate.
Oh, I might.
You might know this
Yeah, I
name.
might know this.
I kind of knew the names, but it's one of those things like you obviously have read about these things in history somewhere along the lines. The name crop up and you hear me think, oh, I do remember this name, but you don't remember the individual details. 'Cause I think by this point we've read through so many different things.
It's like I've got lots of so many details from so many different cases or just fiction stories. I'm like, is that real?
Well, this is it, because I'm pretty sure I learnt about some of these maybe in school. Like you've touched on it very briefly, like in one lesson in history at school, but it's more about the stories that have been created around them. So like, obviously a lot of these historical cases, people end up writing books or poems surrounding this individual person. Yeah. So, well, you look in history, a lot of things are based off stuff, and it's all come from this person in history, or a possible it's based off a person in history.
Yeah.
So I feel like somewhere along the line, that's where I've possibly heard this name before, but I've probably only touched on it very briefly, and that's why I've not really retained that much information on it.
The only thing I really remember from history in school is Tudors, Henry VIII.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing you touched on. Then you did Victorian, and then it was like First World War. And that was like it through school.
I don't even remember. We probably did First World War, but it was probably touched on because I don't remember it.
I think it's not gripped you in a way. Like you look at some of these cases, like for this, I love all this sort of thing with the pirates and the mystery cases. So like I retain a lot more of the information.
And maybe doing it this way, we're actually teaching people.
I think you are, but you're learning stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Because I am one of those. I don't struggle with reading, but I do prefer to read a non-fiction to a fiction. Like for me, I read for a purpose. Like I retain the information better.
I love to read. It's just reading out loud. It's just like no.
Well, this is it. And I think as well, like I can get quite frustrated with fiction because especially if it doesn't have the ending you want it to have. It's a bit like, oh, it's ruined it now. Like it's a bit crap. Whereas with fiction, like it's actually what happened. Like you retain that information, and it's something that's actually happened. I tend to actually remember afterwards because I've done it before so many times where I've read like a fiction book, and then you could ask me like even weeks later and I don't really remember it. Like I read it but I don't retain any of it. It doesn't go in.
Yeah, that's why I think doing it your way and like handwriting notes rather than typing it up in a script way, I've learned more doing it this way. I'm remembering it more because the last few episodes I'm just like read it. I assume the last episodes are really shit because I'm reading from a script. This way, today I felt so much better because it's notes. I've handwritten it. Yeah. It's in my mind.
Well, this is it as well. Like, obviously, I learn much better visually. So, like, in terms of, like, watching videos and stuff, I do pick up that sort of thing, which is, or hearing it, like, audio, it goes in my head a bit better. Whereas reading, if it's a lot of reading and if it's forced upon me, I don't tend to take it in. And I think that's where I struggled a lot with stuff going back to school. Because it's like, we've got to do this and you've got to do it now. Whereas this, I've read it on my own terms, at my own pace, and it's something I'm interested in. Yeah. So it's been much easier. And then again, writing it, it's like you've had to rewrite what you've read, so you've had to take it in. Yeah. And then, like I said, in that practice of writing it out, you remember it much better. Because like some of these cases, I literally wrote them a few weeks ago, and it's still fresh in my head because I've had to physically do it.
And I think it's also, we're basically studying again, but I feel like I've studied more now than I did way back in school.
Oh yeah, I definitely have. But it's more tailored to things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And that's what I really struggled with before. It's like, it's not that I wouldn't have found those other things interesting, but it was almost like it was forced upon me. So I just naturally didn't pick up on it, or I missed a lot of stuff because I kind of switched off a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's what happens with me. If it's not presented in a way that's interesting, even if the subject itself is interesting, your mind wanders.
Yeah, well, you think, like, now, like, even some of these cases that I've done, and I looked at the time and I think, I probably did touch on this at school. I just haven't retained any of that information because it's been done in the most boring way. Like, they're just trying to get the important bits for whatever lesson it is you're doing, and they've left out all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas this, we can look into it and find out the bits we want to. But yeah, this book is definitely a massive source for quite a few of my
thought
cases.
You'd like that book. Even before, like, I mentioned the podcast to you, I was just like, I'll buy this book because I think you like it. And then when I spoke to you about doing the podcast, I was like, I've got a brilliant gift for you that's going to help.
Well, this is it. It was like, as soon as I read it, specifically I said it just mentions these women in history.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them themselves aren't a mystery, but it's as you're reading about these people and people they're involved in, you happen to know something. Oh, like some of them jog my memory. I was like, oh, I'm sure that's to do with that.
Yeah.
And so I've just sort of like Googled it afterwards, and then I found a mystery within it. Or like cases like this, where it's basically just giving you stuff about her life, and then just says, oh yeah, there's no records of her at the end. And I'm like, what? Why is there no records? Where did she go?
She's still alive.
Oh no, she's definitely not. Not from... oh, well, unless she's a witch.
Magic. Yep. She might have found the fountain of youth.
Oh, quite possibly. But she was born in, I think it's late 1600s, so she's going to be a bit haggard by now.
Or she could be me.
Oh yeah, you are 30,000 years old.
30,000. I thought I was 10,000 years old.
Oh, I don't know, it's changed.
You change all the time. I don't know how old I am.
Well, you never age, so it's a bit hard to tell.
What's her name? It might be me.
I don't think so.
That's
You've
why
got an Anne somewhere in your name.
That's why she seems so familiar to you. It's me.
Oh, is that what it is? You're a pirate, Natasha.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Pirate witch.
Ooh.
There we go.
There we go. We've merged with created. Not a new creature, but
it's better than the other thing you called me.
What, Swampy?
Yeah. A swamp witch.
You are a swamp witch. Swamp witches live for hundreds of thousands of years, and they never age. They always look youthful, and that is you. You have not aged.
Thank you.
So you are a swamp witch.
I'll take the... is it a backhanded compliment? I'm not sure.
It is a compliment.
Swampy. Okay, continue.
Okay, right. So on to the case. This is the case of a pirate called Anne Bonny, and basically what happened to her. Right. So it's the notorious female pirates of Anne Bonny and Mary Read, because they come across each other. So you recognise the name? I knew the name, but I just couldn't think.
Are they lovers? And you saying they come across each other?
Sort of.
Was a bit...
Right, okay. So I'll start with Anne.
I know the names. I saw this video once, and I think this is the only reason why I know it.
Okay.
So I know the names. I can't remember anything else.
Yeah, I literally, as soon as I read the name, I was like, I know something about this, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Is she like the first female pirate, or the first documented female pirate?
Yeah, they're the most notorious as well, supposedly. I think it's more because it's the most information they've got on them. So it's not necessarily, they might have not been the most notorious at the time, but it's the most documentation on stuff. So in terms of history, it's the most that are documented, probably the best documented. So it's the ones that everyone picks up on. Also,
it's women in history.
Yes.
It's barely documented.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely in comparison, you think of your male pirates, how many documentaries, books?
Bluebeard, Blackbeard.
Yeah, Blackbeard.
Redbeard.
Oh my god.
The what?
There's another black one. Oh bloody hell.
There's a show that I want to watch that we don't have over here yet, called Our Flags Mean Death.
Ooh.
Which is a pirate show, and the two men, I think, are in love. It's taken the piss out of the actual pirates themselves.
Oh, brilliant.
We need it over here. It's going to be interesting.
Okay, I'm quite excited for this.
Yeah.
I love it when that sort of thing goes
Taika Waititi, Rhys Darby. Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Yes. Back to the case. Right, so I'll give you a little bit of background on them first. So Anne was born illegitimately to a successful lawyer in Ireland who took her to America.
Yep. Wait, when was this?
So she's born in... There's a bit of a discrepancy. Some people say late 1600s. Here, in the bit that I managed to find, she was born in 1697. But some are saying it's a couple of years earlier. Some are saying it's a few years later.
I'm just trying to think of like American history when America was discovered, in quotes. So it's like very early on in American history times.
Yeah, so he obviously took her to America.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at this point in time, obviously... Oh yeah, so the locals were absolutely scandalised by the fact of her dressing up as a boy to pose as her father's assistant, rather than obviously dressing as his daughter. But I think he kind of did that to help get her over there and get more work to support himself, because it allowed him to get a better variety of jobs.
I'm kind of thinking of Elizabeth Swann in Pirates of the Caribbean.
A little bit, yeah. That's the vibe I sort of got.
Yeah.
The thought of her dressing up as a man seemed to be more of a scandal at the time than the reports that she'd previously stabbed a servant girl. So people weren't really bothered that she'd gone around stabbing people. They were more bothered.
It's not that she went around stabbing people, it's who she stabbed.
Yeah.
The servant.
So, yeah, but the fact that she dressed as a boy was far more of a scandal than that itself.
Because servants aren't people at this time.
So, obviously, father's taken her, dressed her up as a boy, and he's taken her over to America.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the time, the fact that she was dressed as a man, well, a boy, seemed far more scandalous than the reports that she'd previously stabbed a servant girl. So people seem to have more of an issue with the fact she was dressing up as a boy than the fact she stabbed a servant.
I think it's probably because she's a slave.
I mean, yeah, true. But even still, if I looked at the two, I'd be a little bit more concerned about the fact she's going around stabbing people rather than the fact she's dressing up as a boy.
Yeah, but I think it's the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can judge differently.
Yeah, differently now. But yeah, at the time, no one seemed very concerned about the fact she's going around stabbing people, but, you know, complete scandal that she's dressed up as a boy.
How dare she dress as a boy?
I know, it's terrible.
Disgusting.
Impersonating. Although, to be fair, I suppose it's a type of fraud, isn't it? But yeah, so then having made success in America as a merchant, her father then disowned her when she married a penniless sailor in 1718. The marriage wasn't to last though, because Anne had become infatuated with the already notorious John Rackham, better known as Calico Jack. Anne was sentenced to a flogging for her adultery, but Jack managed to free her. She obviously left her husband and went to sea with Jack. She became pregnant with his child before joining his crew. She was dressed in male clothing still to disguise the fact that she was a woman. So I don't know how that went completely unmissed by the rest of the crew, whether they just weren't bothered. I don't know.
Also, the name Calico Jack sounds kind of cool.
It does a bit, doesn't it? I quite like it. So this is then where Mary comes in. So whilst on this ship, she would meet Mary Read, who had been dressed as a boy by her mother so that she could earn more money. So, similar scenario. Mm-hmm. Mary had also been a cadet in Belgium, again disguised as a boy, until she revealed herself to a Flemish soldier and ended up marrying him. In Mary's case, her husband died and she set off for a new life in the West Indies, but it appears that her ship, as well as her, were captured by pirates. Rather than put up any resistance to the pirates, she simply joined them. A story was put forward that Mary didn't realise Anne was also a woman until she tried to seduce her.
Oh, okay.
So I think this might be what you were referring to earlier. Now sailing together, Anne and Mary were part of a violent, foul-mouthed crew who did not just pillage and loot other vessels, but would torture and murder anyone in their way. It was also said that the crew took part in drunken orgies before and after taking ships. Calico Jack's crew were finally captured near Jamaica in 1720, and the male crew members were too drunk to resist arrest. Only the two women would put up a fight. Absolute classic.
Of course. Are they as drunk as them so they can handle their booze, or they're watching all these men fall apart and they're just like, look at these, and
yeah, no, absolute idiots.
Yeah,
I feel like it's a little bit of that.
Also, do the men know that these are women?
Well, obviously Jack knows that she is. I'm guessing some of them at some point, if they've had these drunken orgies, they've figured it out. Maybe they're just not that bothered because they got on all right with them.
Or they're like, hey, I thought you were a man.
Where's your penis?
I don't know.
It got chopped off.
It fell off. It rotted away.
Scurvy.
Yeah, ships aren't the cleanest place.
Yeah, so they were captured near Jamaica in 1720, and the male crew members were obviously too drunk, so only the 2 women put up a fight. Calico's Jack body was suspended from a gibbet at the entrance of Kingston Harbour. Both Anne and Mary were tried separately, and this is where the tales of astonishing adventures come to light. So this is how they discover about all their pillaging, and the fact that they were obviously women disguised as men. However, both women managed to escape the noose purely because when they were examined, both were found to be pregnant. So they couldn't murder them at the time because the law where they were was pregnant women couldn't be slaughtered. They would allow them to have the babies.
And then kill them.
Yeah.
Oh, because they're pro-life.
Apparently. Right. Unfortunately, this is where Mary's end comes. Unfortunately, Mary dies in prison from a fever in April 1721. So,
Mary, you went out with a fever.
Yeah.
You're stronger than
that. But I wonder
that.
if maybe going back from there, that was maybe after, say like after childbirth, because still a lot of women died around that time. Plus she spent months at sea. She's now locked in prison. I should imagine it's not a comfy prison cell.
It's more...
You imagine she's struggling, it's in a cell, it's not clean, she then goes into labour. You imagine how easy it is to contract an infection.
Exactly. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to give her health care after. It's not like they're going to pop a baby out and they go, okay, we'll take care of you now.
There's no health care.
Yeah. Well, for anyone there wasn't.
No.
But you think an average woman, she'd have some form of a midwife, whether that was a family member or an actual nurse they're going to be taken care of. These women are in prison. They don't give a shit. So
also,
there's no aftercare, if you like.
We still need to provide that, I think. I don't... Because, obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean, they don't show you how disgusting the pirate life is.
Yeah, it's
glamorized in our minds. I mean, it's not that great.
Yeah, they paint on the book.
yeah.
But even then, even living in towns, you forget how dirty everyone
exactly.
was. Still, a lot of this is not proper sewage.
No, I'm assuming they're still throwing it out the window.
I think they at passing people.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not like today. You've not got a proper... Some towns would have had a form of a sewage system, but then you think, like I said, these back on ships, other than when they come into harbour, they're pissing and shitting wherever they want. I mean, technically, I guess they're throwing it in the sea. But if you're ill or you get some sort of infection, well, you get your leg lopped off for starters if you've got a bad leg.
They might have had a little toilet chair in the...
I feel like it's still a bucket. And
throwing it out.
Yeah.
Or just hanging your bum over the...
over the edge.
Over the boat. Just...
But yeah, so obviously, unfortunately, Mary died.
Oh, Mary.
And this is where the records of Anne vanish, and we don't know what happened to her. Now, there's a few vague reports.
Because Bonny, she stole them.
Well, obviously, she's in prison.
Oh, okay.
We don't find out. Obviously, I'm presuming she has the baby. I don't know whether she goes full term and the baby is alive, or whether the baby dies before. So this is where there's some vague reports found by historians. Some suggest she escaped from prison. So this is how it gets
in my heart she has.
I hope she has. Others suggested that she was rescued by her now rich father, because he's made a lot of money back in America as a merchant.
Oh wait, my theory is her dad doesn't give a shit.
But he's saved her from a lot of things before. He's obviously brought her, even though you think she was an illegitimate child, he could have just denounced that she was even his.
Okay,
but he still took her with him. He's disguised her as a boy. He's not... Well, I suppose he could have used her.
Did he disguise her as a boy? Or
No, he disguised her as a boy when they moved from Ireland over to America so that he could use to help as his assistant in work.
Oh, I thought she was doing it herself. And sorry.
So that was the way he got her out. So obviously you imagine once he's gone over to America, he's not just walking around with some illegitimate daughter. He's got... a boy that's his assistant, helps with the work, gets them a living. He's then merchant. It takes off.
Okay. Yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, you're right. Because in my head, it was just her doing it herself. But why would if she's her dad's assistant, her dad's going to realise that it's her and drag?
Yeah. So some suspect that she was then rescued by her rich father, who found her a respectable husband, and others reported that she lived to a ripe old age of 82 and mothered as many as 10 children. So this is back in America.
I don't... From the vibe I get from her, she probably wouldn't settle down.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
And this is where it then gets a bit confusing, because there's two possible cases of her dying, which is why we don't know how and when she actually died. Okay. And you'll understand what I sort of mean as I go on. Now, there's a ledger that lists the burial of an Anne Bonny on the 29th of October 1773, but doesn't list the Anne with an E on the end, but is that just lost in, like, that's how the person has spelt it, right?
So she's Anne with an E.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in this, she isn't. In the same town in Jamaica in which she was captured and tried. So this is back when she had a sentence.
Okay.
A man named Charles Johnson writes a book called A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates, and that was published in 1724. So that's nearly 4 years after she would have been captured.
Mm.
In that, he writes, she was continued in prison to the time of her lying in, and afterwards reprieved from time to time, but what has become of her since we cannot tell. Only this, that she knows she was not executed. So, did she have the baby and manage to escape? Or did she serve her sentence? So, this, obviously, reading that, it suggests that she wasn't in prison by 1724, which is just 4 years after she was tried. So, either her sentence wasn't very long, or, like I said, she's managed to escape. So, but then you've got the thing of, obviously, the reports of her death wasn't until 1773. So could she have lived in that community for a further 9 years, or was it more likely that she escaped and moved away, which is where the reports of her rich father rescuing her and taking her back to America come in? Because
that makes sense.
I do kind of agree with it. If she's been tried for a crime in there, I mean, I know she's already a master of disguise, but also, would you be able to live there for a further 9 years in that community?
And I feel like she doesn't settle in one place for too long.
No. So obviously the name matches, but beyond that, there's nothing. Then there's a second record, and this is much later. So records from 1782 in South Carolina also lists the death of an Anne Bonny, spelt with an E, so that was correct for her. And some suggest that she either escaped and travelled there, so she was either helped by her father or managed to escape and get herself there, or she simply served her sentence back in Jamaica, and then when she was released, she then travelled back to America.
Okay.
As a child, this is a bit that I found out later, Carolina was the area in which her father had taken her to, so it's possible that going back to America, and that theory that her father had helped her, that is an area in which she would go to.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that means she lived for quite a few more years. So
I
it's
have
almost
a question.
Okay.
They weren't going to hang Mary and Anne because they were pregnant.
Yeah.
So after either they lost the baby was born.
Yeah.
What is their
I don't know. This is where I'm not sure whether it was like a life imprisonment sort of thing. Obviously, Mary died. That's what I'm going with. And this is where the reports are a bit sketchy.
So Anne serving her sentence.
Mm-hmm. So that's a possibility that
she would be life.
Well, it depends how. It doesn't say how long the sentence was. It never said. There was no records of. All we know is the men were sentenced to death and the women weren't because they were pregnant.
Okay.
So they might have. I don't know how long the sentences were then, depending on what it was you've done. They might have seen her as a woman. They give her a lesser sentence. Like, she might have been able to charm away and say, like, I was dragged into it by a man, and so I don't know, they give her 10 or 15 years. Yeah,
use her woman charm.
So she has the baby, serves a sentence, goes back, and it's not exciting. It's not as exciting as we think. Or she could have escaped and gone back to America.
There's a dog with a key that she
entices in. Come here, boy.
And then she got out that way.
But yeah, so
because why does her dad have to save her?
I don't know. I feel like it's a typical.
It's a cop out.
The man's come to the rescue. Prince Charming has come back together. But it would explain how. I suppose in a way it could explain how she's managed to get out. If her dad has brought a ship over, it's quick access to go back. But I feel like the whole she's possibly served a sentence. The second that's done, she's off. She's out. She gets a ship, travels back. Maybe, like I said, she's got to get somewhere. So she's now on her own. She hasn't got that whole crew. So maybe actually the first thing to do to travel back to America, that is quite a sensible option. She could just be a stowaway. She could be. Yeah. She could join another crew. Yeah. Carry on pillaging. Should take over that crew. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which is why I feel like she either went for not necessarily a quieter life, but she did something different. She might have switched to another type of crime because she would have, I suppose, already been associated with that. Like, she's got to get away. She's got to get away somehow. So I don't think she's left Jamaica and then gone for a quiet life, but I think it's quite possible she could have served a sentence, upped and gone, like, sailed somewhere else, possibly like America, and then maybe rekindled a bit with her father, made some things, and then set up another form of crime and lived where she was. Because I said there was some reports, it was a bit vague, but that was a one about another the Anne Bonny, and she was a mother of 10 children. I mean, I suppose she could have 10 children by 10 different men she's met along the way.
I found a picture of Anne Bonny. Yeah, found a picture of Anne Bonny.
Well, it'll have to be a drawing, won't it?
Wait, it's a drawing. I think she has her boobs out.
Yeah, it kind of looks like she does though.
Yeah, but she looks cool. Well, she has an axe in her pocket.
I mean, like, I feel, well, she's carrying plenty of weapons, isn't she?
She's got a gun in her right hand, axe in her pocket, and then something. She's got a sword as well. Oh my god!
But I think that's it, because it was so long ago in history and the reports are so vague. It's a case of it's all open to interpretation. It's stories that other people are told, so you don't know how much of it is true.
No.
And like with this, there is 2 possible deaths. That's the only one that is in Jamaica, is that it doesn't have the E on the end, but that's quite easily done. There's all the time people's names are misspelt.
Yeah, of course.
In different places. So, but I do find it a bit difficult that she would have stayed there for 9 years. Like, it's not impossible, because we already know she's brilliant at disguising herself. So it's not impossible, but I don't see why she would stay there for 9 years. Or could she, I suppose if she could have still been in prison, she served a bit of a sentence, then was released out, like if it was a short sentence, and she could have died not long after.
Yeah.
But then in that book, was that guy writing that we don't know what happened to her because she's already gone by 1724? Or is it a case of she's still in there, and it just, in terms of history, they don't really know what's happened to her?
They probably don't know. It's probably word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it keeps the illusion of the pirate lady alive.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened to her.
And that's it. So it is a mystery.
Yeah.
Because what happened to her in the end?
I think she's cool.
I like to think that she's escaped, gone somewhere else, but maybe not necessarily as a pirate, but she's doing some other sort of crime. I feel like she's too clever. Maybe she's running some sort of fraud.
Well, she might be, she might work with her dad again and, like, use that as a way to commit fraud.
And she's living a much more comfortable life now. Like, she's been at sea.
Yeah. You want to be clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's lived in prison, horrible conditions. She's now...
You want that comfy bed.
Yeah, and that's it. So she's going back, committing a different type of crime where she can have a nice house.
Yeah.
And live quite comfortably off until an old age. That's what I like to think that she's done. But she's still cunning enough. She can't just settle and have a happy life.
Yeah. She's a sly little fox, I think.
I feel like she's still quite independent as well.
Yeah,
that's how I like to imagine. She's not relying on a man.
Yeah, I don't think... She could be found a man and, like, be married to him, but I don't think she's relying on him.
But yeah, I do, like I said, I understand why people think her dad might have gone back and rescued her. I do like the idea of them having still a close relationship, and that's why she's gone back to America.
Yeah.
Because she sort of wanted to go back to him. But not necessarily that she relies on him, but obviously he's took her across the world. Like, and you think back in those times, most men, they wouldn't have took their daughter with them, especially not an illegitimate child. So he seems like, in a weird way, kind of a nice guy.
Did you say what his name was?
Yes, it was... oh no, maybe I haven't. I thought I had.
It's fine. But yeah, he does sound like a good dad.
Yeah, no, and I feel like they maybe could have had a good enough relationship that she would have gone back. Because I imagine before, like with pirates, even back when she was out and sailing around, they always have roots that they originally like go back to. Yeah, I like the idea that she probably has served a sentence and then
she found Tortuga.
Yeah, I like the idea. Like I say, she's got more treasures buried away somewhere.
Of course she has. She's smart. Her and Mary put things everywhere.
I like the idea as well. She's living in some sort of, I don't know, it's more because it's what we'd kind of like, but some big gothic sort of house with loads of treasures hidden away somewhere that she's collected over the years.
She's got is it plantation?
Yeah.
Maybe she has but then it makes her not as good because then she's got slaves. She wouldn't have slaves. I don't imagine.
I don't know, because her father would have, but I don't know if that just comes with the line of work that he had. Like, he was a lawyer, so he had enough money to... Well, it was a servant girl, wasn't it, going back?
And rather than an enslaved person.
Yeah, so someone that they just pay a very poor wage. But yeah, I think it's quite... I like to think that she's gone back and had a comfortable life, but she's still a bit cunning. She's obviously not behaving herself. I like the idea.
That was a good case. I enjoyed it. I know a little bit about Anne Bonny, but like I said, my brain doesn't retain anything.
Yeah. I'm just more interested, like, obviously we're not going to find out what happened to her. But I do like the idea that there's that possibility of, like, well, what did happen? Because there's no more reports of her being anywhere in a major crime. So either she's changed her name and she's still carrying on being a pirate. So maybe I'll have to look into some more notorious female pirates and see if I think any of them could be Anne.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
See if anything connects.
Yeah, do another little mini episode as a sort of revisited.
That's a good idea. Follow.
Yeah. See if I've made a connection, or if anyone else makes a connection, if they can find where they think she might have cropped up as another pirate, or other crimes that they think she might have done after these years. We might solve that gap in time. Well, like I said, we don't actually know when she died. So
she's still alive.
Quite possibly. as a pirate witch.
She found Atlantis. She's living in Atlantis. Oh, that was a good case.
Shit, how do we end it?
So in the meantime, you keep creeping.
And we'll keep digging.